Great. Well, okay, so let's get started. Um, so, Lindsay, if you can start first of all by telling me a little bit about your company, and I presume, having pitched it all kinds of places on Shark Tank, right? That you've got a pretty polished kind of description and pitch. So give it to me.
Absolutely. So my company is called Bite. We make plastic-free personal care, starting with toothpaste. And the whole reason we exist is to take plastic out of our routines. So anything from toothpaste to mouthwash, we just came out with the first and only plastic-free whitening gel. We want to make things that are better for the planet and better for our bodies.
And tell me how the idea for the company came about.
Yeah, so I've always been really passionate about the environment. I was traveling all the time for work. I was working as a TV producer here in Los Angeles, and I was on a plane about every other week, but only for a few days each place. And so I started throwing out those little travel toothpaste tubes, and I had worked everything else out. So I had my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash. I could just refill all of that, but I couldn't figure out toothpaste. So I started looking into what other options there were and what I could use, and none of them really was what I was looking for. So I decided to start taking online chemistry classes, talking to dentists, dental hygienists, and then I finally came up with the Bite tablets in our glass jar that we have today.
So it's sort of a big leap from like, oh, I can't find like a good environmental solution for my own toothpaste use to I'm gonna take online chemistry classes. So that's a big jump. So why and how, and like what was in your mind when you're doing that?
Yeah, so it is such a big jump, but it was one of those things where it was like a bunch of little steps, and the next thing I knew, I'm like, it was a Saturday night, and I'm taking online chemistry courses, and I was like, how did I get here? But I've always been super passionate about the environment. Before I was in TV, I was a surf instructor and a snowboard instructor here in Los Angeles. So I'd live at the beach in the winter, and then the beach in the summer, and the mountains in the winter. And I remember seeing in those few years that I was teaching just more and more plastic wash up on my board. So it had been something that I was always really passionate about from for a very long time. And so when I kind of made that connection to, hey, wow, toothpaste tubes are, it's this mixed material. Never thought about that. It can't be recycled. I'm using it every day, twice a day. It started with like a little question that then just kept on asking more questions. Cause then it was like, wait, why is it in a tube? Wait, why is there, water in it? Oh, wait, 40% of toothpaste is water. Like, why are we doing that? Oh, wait, when you put water in something, you have to put harsh chemicals and preservatives and artificial flavors to cover up the taste of those preservatives. And like, why? And so I ended up just kept on asking these questions. And the next thing I knew, like, it was, I think it's like the TV producer in me. It was just really interesting to keep going down of how we got to this point. And the next thing I knew, I had like invested money and time, and like I hadn't seen my friends in a really long time. And I was like, okay, well, at this point, I want to make this for myself. I want to have this for myself when I'm traveling. And that's what I'm going to do. So it was like a small snowball that just kept building up.
Yeah. And so did you, when you say you invested money, where did the first kind of money come from so I presume you had to make a prototype and do all those things. Where did that money come from?
Yeah, so savings. So I had been saving from my job just for life, hobbies, things to spend money on. And so I started buying, the first thing was ingredients, like I had to buy all these different ingredients, and I would buy these, most of them were really common, xylitol, erythritol. I could get that at like a Whole Foods, but then some of them I was getting from like the Chemistry Connection website with like different surfactants and like all these different things. And so I would buy it and I would try it, and then I wouldn't be able to use it. So then I had all of these like, mason jars building up in the back of I say office, but it was literally our living room. And it became an expense, but I was just so curious. I was like, this didn't work. That did work. This, and then, so I just kept on buying those things. And I really didn't want to have to invest in a tableting machine, because a tableting machine was $1,000. And I was like, okay, that's like a serious commitment. Like that's a lot of like art classes, or like, whatever, like Mount rock climbing trips, So I was like, I really didn't want to have to put that into this hobby that was mine. So I tried like baking them in the oven to make like this like hard, kind of like a ball thing. And then like I set my toaster oven on fire and I was just like, this is it. Like I know tablets are the way to go. I just need to buy the machine. So I bought the machine and I actually didn't know how to use it. And so then I had to buy a plane ticket to Texas to where the machine was made so they could teach me how to use it. Cause I couldn't even, so it's like one thing leads to another when it comes to the finances. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm going to put this online. I'm going to sell it. Like I just want to recoup my money. At this point, I had spent about $6,000. And I was like, if I just kind of sell these as a hobby, eventually I'll kind of make that back. So that was how it all started.
I see. So have you taken outside money yet?
We've been super lucky. We are customer funded. We've not taken any venture capital. And we actually, we went on Shark Tank, and it was to get a partnership more than anything else. I think the sharks they're so smart and they're so successful. And we were like, that would be amazing to have someone like that in our corner, but we didn't need money. So we were going in there for that partnership. And it's a really lucky place to be when the deal isn't something that you feel like is fair, and you can turn it down. And Mark was so gracious, and Kevin was hilarious, and so it was an all in all like really great experience. But yeah, that's kind of been day one, just customer funded. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's kind of funny, like how many. So I've met the Sharks. I went to one of their premiere parties like a long time ago. So they were big already, but they weren't institutions like they are now. There's a fun party. I'll send you the piece about it. It's called "Kissed by a Shark and Live to Tell the Tale."
I would love to read that.
It's pretty funny. But it's really interesting. Over the years, I probably interviewed half a dozen like Shark Tank entrepreneurs, and I don't think any single one of them actually took the money. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it interesting? It's a much more of a like, I don't know. I think it's entertainment at this point more than it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. The deals are tough. They're really tough. And that's the thing too, is like, I think there was one point where Shark Tank has gotten really awesome at casting these businesses that are doing really well.
Right.
But then at that point, it's like, you don't go on there desperate. So if you're like, this isn't a great deal, like I can't just take it, and I think that there was a point where it was like anybody was just like, yeah, I'll take anything. And now people are kind of like, oh my God, like, because we went on with like a very shark friendly deal. Like we had kind of already, like, I will say the one thing that I would possibly change if I changed anything about that is that we left no room to negotiate. Like I kind of was like, I want this to be a partnership. I want this to be fair. So I don't want a nickel and dime with my prospective partner. And so we went in with very little room to negotiate, but the Sharks love a deal. So like it was, and so I was just like, well, we painted ourselves into that corner, but I mean, it was great.
Yeah, it worked out apparently.
Yeah.
So, and so tell me just quickly, like, what's the next step for your company? How big do you think it can grow in the short term? What are you forecasting in terms of revenue?
So we've been, growing exponentially every year. I think it's not just because people are not worrying, they're thinking about what they're putting in their bodies, like in a whole new way, but they're also thinking about the impact that it's having on the planet in an entirely new way. And because of, external circumstances, COVID, and also just, I think, technology, more people are shopping online than ever before. So it's like these three things that have just really helped us out in a way. And I think we've done a lot in oral care. We've come out with a completely oral care line now, and we're excited to kind of start to expand into personal care at the end of this year. So I think that's when things are going to get really interesting, especially because I just feel like there's so much to be done in that space, and there's a lot of people entering that space, which I think is awesome. And that's how we're going to have like the real technology advances. But I'm excited that's how I see us expanding, like not only our customer base, but also categories and new things. So
how many employees do you have?
So we are 9. We're 9. So we're super scrappy. We like to that. Like as a team, we've decided like instead of where a lot of startups, when they get to our point, they just blow up, like I see people at our, similar stages where they have 3 times the amount of employees. And we want to just have really high impact people in these roles. So we get the best person that we can possibly get and just run in that direction. And it's been really, really helpful. I mean, really great so far. So
is everybody working at home, or do you have an office somewhere?
so we're still running out of we're remote. I feel like so many businesses too. A lot of our people are remote. But anybody who is here in LA, we rented our apartment and turned it into an office space. So like this is actually one of the rooms that we basically turned into office areas, but we're primarily remote. I feel like all businesses at this point, at least at this point.
Yeah. Small businesses, unless they're like customer facing, are definitely.
Yeah.
So you didn't tell me revenue. And it is something that I usually ask because, people listening aren't going to have an idea of whether it's like 10,000 or 10 million.
Right. So the thing is, because we're private and we don't want to come out with our revenue, I will say we're 8 figures. And that's 8 figures revenue. And that's something that has been like self-funded. That's a huge deal. And we continue to grow. Last year, 200%. We're still on track for that this year. We'll see where we come at the end of the year. But yeah, so we're still growing. We're just growing every year. So
Okay.
yeah.
And tell me, so one of the things I was interested in when I was chatting with your public relations people ahead of time was the fact that okay, so your dad worked at the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And your mom was at home, I presume, I
Mhm.
don't have siblings, but at home for a while, and then was a teacher of entrepreneurship and marketing. So
Yeah.
tell me how your parents affected kind of your aspirations and your interest in becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I loved visiting my dad at work. He was an ad executive at the Washington Post, so not a journalist, but I got to be there, where it all happened. And I think that growing up, especially outside of Washington, D.C., where so many important decisions are being made, and then being able to go to see the Washington Post offices, which like they have these huge paper reels and, like where the print.
In the olden days, I don't know if I presume they still do. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they don't have it anymore, but it was and I just remember like being in awe. And so I went to school for communications, and I knew that I wanted to work in TV at that point, and specifically nature documentaries. And then my mom was an entrepreneurship teacher, which is actually really funny because I had like never really had an interest in my own business. Like I went very much my dad's way, where it was like, I want to work in media and like tell stories and make change that way. And my mom was being like, you can make changes with business. And I was like, no, mom, like, that's not the way I want to do it. And then like, turns out, when Bite first went viral, like I was calling my mom being like, all right, you need to run me through the basis of a business plan. What is this? And so it was, and what's been really great for her too, is she's been able to see this totally different side where she's teaching these high school kids, how to run a business and how to do these things. And now she's seeing firsthand, like with her daughter, who's calling her up on like a weekly basis, being like, everything is going crazy, and really seeing kind of the inside of that. And so it's been really, really interesting and awesome. And she actually just retired this year, which is huge. But one of her, I got to talk to her class. So she would always have me come in and I would talk to her students like on Skype, and talk with them. And I think it's just so important, now I have an entirely new respect for entrepreneurship because I really see the change that you can make, and I think for me growing up, I always saw change coming from media, which I still think is very much the truth. And we also see ourselves at Bite. We're not just a product company. We're a media company. We take that incredibly seriously. And our mission is to get the message of sustainability out. And so that's something I kind of like from my TV background, I think is so important. But we're a business, and I really see how that can make changes too. So, yeah.
And so forgive me if you said this and I missed it, but
Yeah.
she was teaching in high school, college. Where did she
High
work?
school. Yeah. So she did something. So it's called like the academy, where it's basically where you have these pods in high schools that kids from different high schools can come and take this. So you have to be like, I don't know if you have to be accepted, but like, it's like, and I did that actually in high school. I did this for digital photography. And like, I literally, like, it's so funny. And then she did it for entrepreneur. She taught it for entrepreneurship. So yeah. And she taught it at TC Williams, which is the
Oh,
Titans from the,
my daughter graduated.
no way.
Yeah, isn't that
Wait,
funny?
that's
Wow.
amazing. She taught there for like 10 years. I wonder if they knew each other.
Well, my daughter graduated just this past year, so I don't know.
Oh, 100% they would, she would be in, she
So
was there when she was there. That's so funny. Yeah, she was teaching. That's amazing.
I'll ask her. What's her name?
Mrs. McCormick. Yeah, Miss McCormick. She was teaching, yeah, entrepreneurship and leadership. Those were her classes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask, I'll ask him, my daughter's friends. So you know that this was the last year of TC Williams, right?
Yeah, they changed the name.
Changed the name. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
which, you know, I know it makes sense. They're all very happy, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
it's a big shift, right? I would
Wow.
it was like TC Williams like gear, and now we're all shifting.
It just makes me think of the, remember
Yeah,
the Titans, you
I know,
know, like
right?
the Titans.
Yeah, this is a yeah, I know. You
Yeah,
can't go like go TC, go, but
I
now
know.
that you know who TC Williams is, you're like, I don't know
I
why.
mean, that's exactly it. I'm like, what were we saying? All, you know, you're like, okay, I get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I'm actually really proud of my daughter's class for like pushing that change through during a pandemic year was really
They're
good.
so, kids, I feel like are so amazing.
Yeah,
They like the kids these days, they know how to come together and really make change. It's so cool.
yeah.
It's so cool.
So in the whole, when you're looking over the sustainability world or this world you're in, I mean, one thing that really strikes me is that entrepreneurs in your generation, that this we're just going to see so much innovation in this space. So are you kind of watching? Do you have an awareness of what other sustainably oriented companies are doing right now, and what are you kind of geared to?
Yeah, I think it's so amazing seeing all of the innovation coming out of small businesses. And I really think that it's going to be the small businesses that come up with the change, because I think the big guys just don't, they're not incentivized and they don't know how to do it. And I think that it's going to be the people in their kitchens and living rooms and home offices that are coming up with real change, like real innovations that lead to these types of change. So I think, you know, not only is having a business more accessible now than ever. Like when I created the LLC for our company now, or like, you know, back when I did it in 2018, I did it by following a YouTube tutorial. You know what I'm saying? And like this information is just all here, and so much of it is free. And you can take, when I took the chemistry classes that I took to learn how to make our tablets, I had found a thread on Reddit, and it was like, if you want to take open source chemistry classes from, you know, senior year of high school to PhD in organic chemistry, here's how you take it for free, you know, and you could click all these different things and take it that way. And I think that, you know, there's never been a better time and a more important time for people to get in and really try to make these changes and like really try to push. And like, that's something that I see for us at Byte. It's, of course, it's about coming up with innovative things. And of course, it's about, you know, the change that we can make, but we can't do it ourselves. But what we can do is we can prove out the market that it's there and like it's a success and people care. And then as we get kind of these bigger companies, you know, these sleeping giants understanding like, wow, there's a customer base that like we need to do this. They then will be able, with their scale and their bargaining power, to make things that are much more accessible and that we wouldn't be able to do because as a small business, we won't. And I think that it's so important that we all have a place in the market, and that will continue to be able to come out with these innovative things that might be less accessible. They might be more expensive because we're doing such honestly weird things. Like it's all hand done and bespoke, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And then, you know, being able to have these big guys come in and make it more accessible to everybody, because if the option, if the need is less plastic in landfills, you know, better systems to defend the planet, it's not going to be the small businesses who can do it themselves. It has to be everybody. And so I think that that's kind of how it all kind of works out.
Mm. Have you surveyed, I'm sure you have, but who's buying your stuff? Is it generally younger people? Like who's the market for it?
The millennials love us. We're, you know,
Yeah.
we're in that, but we also have a lot of moms, you know, Gen X. I always say Gen Z and Gen X the wrong way. Gen X and for like, because everybody, you know, Parents love us because the great ingredients and it's really easy to clean up. But then a lot of, millennials and Gen Z, I think really get it. But across the board, I mean, I'm so surprised when, we have a customer, who everything about them, you would not think that they care about the plastic problem. And then they're emailing and being like, thank you so much for solving the plastic problem. And you're like, holy cow, like it really is, it brings people together. So our main demo is what you would expect, coastal women in the millennial age. However, we really do span in ways that is very surprising and exciting to see the changes that way.
And what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs and especially to women entrepreneurs?
I would give the advice to entrepreneurs in general to not wait on other people for answers, right? There's so much that you can do to figure out. I feel like a lot of people will be like, well, I need to raise money, or I need to bring in an expert, or I need to hire an expert. And it's like, when it comes to coming up with truly innovative solutions, sometimes you can be the expert. There is information out there. Of course, for me, I just talk to dentists and dental hygienists, but there's advice that you can get, but there's so much information out here right now that if you have a passion for something and you want to be able to solve a problem, you can do it. It's here. And to women, I feel like specifically, and this is something that's very interesting to me. And I feel like it's one of those things that some people might be like, ooh, but a question that I get so much as a female entrepreneur is like, how do you maintain work-life balance? And for me, it's really interesting because I have a lot of friends, guys and girls in entrepreneurship, and the guys aren't asked that question. And I don't think it's very fair, and so there is a lot of work that goes into entrepreneurship. And sometimes work life is out of balance, but if you're getting fulfillment from what you do, that's the most important thing to me. And I think that we put, as women, a lot of pressure on ourselves to be able to be everything to everyone. And sometimes if you really want to just put your head down and work, that's okay too. And so for me, I think that I go in and out of balance, and I think that that's okay.
Yeah. When people bring that issue up, I'm always like, well, I think what we really should be doing is asking the guys that question too. Right?
Exactly. Yes. And it's mental health is so important and balance is so important, but there's also something to be, for me, I guess, especially because it's, something that's so important to me, it's more energizing than depleting, so for me, it is very much, I would rather be doing this than many other things, and I feel very lucky to be able to do it. And when I need to take a break, I take a break. But yeah, actually, that's a great, we should be asking the other side how they do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting space to navigate, right? As a journalist writing about this stuff for a long time. And also I try and let go of some of my own, I came up in a different era, right? When it was actually I feel like we've made a lot of progress, right? There's
Right.
still more barriers that stand in women's ways, and in some ways those haven't changed much, but in other ways, women themselves are different, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we really raised, I'm gonna pat myself on the back, we really raised the generation of very strong women, right? The women who came up in my era who were raised in turn by the women of the 60s, we just keep getting stronger and stronger.
It's so much change when you actually look back in a historically very short amount of time, which was really amazing. I feel like,
Yeah.
I think when you look, and that's our moms. It's and then it's just seeing that amount of change, and then thinking what that's going to be for the ones under us and under us, where you're just like, wow, I think that, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So.
So tell me, but I didn't ask this question, but now I'm curious. So do you have kids? You're married. I think you mentioned a
I don't. So my boyfriend, it's we long-term boyfriend, no kids, just a very loud dog. We give a lot of attention to. My friends with kids are just like, you shouldn't even make that joke because everyone does. And kids are so much more work than a dog. And I'm like, yeah, 100. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I hear they're worth it from everyone I talk to. I hear
on most days. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like having a business, honestly. It's
Yeah.
usually worth it, sometimes really hard.
I'm a single mom too, so my life is
Oh, wow.
on every day, like tons.
Hats off to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a double full-time job.
it
So
is.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yep.
And she just graduated high school, or
She
she's
did. And then I have a younger one who's just going into high school.
TC or whatever the new TC is.
The
Oh,
ACHS. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And my older daughter's going to South Carolina. So like down in that neck of the woods where you
Oh,
were.
amazing. Yeah. And what a great, so she did the same thing. Just she
Yeah.
can drive home for holidays, but she knows she's not going to get a surprise. It's the
Right.
perfect distance.
That's right.
Plus the weather is great. The
Yeah,
weather is
I think
great.
she's excited about that because she was like north. She was like, no way, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm just gonna get depressed. Again, that self-knowledge was really
Yeah.
impressive. And she's just like, I'm so much happier in the sun and the warm. And so
Yeah.
that, yeah, that made it easier to pick.
That's really fun. That's really great. I went through the same process when I was looking at colleges. I thought of Vermont and I was like, I'd love to go to Vermont. But then I was
Right.
like, it's gonna be so cold. Like I'm gonna be so bummed, you know, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
bummed. So
Yeah.
yeah. Something about the
And
sunshine
now you're in California where it's like sunny all the time. So you're
all the time. And it
Yeah.
really is, it really does lift your mood, I feel like. And that's something with us too, with like, no matter how crazy work can get or how intense things can get, I can look out and it's the ocean and the sunshine and it's just nice, you know? So.
Anything else you want to add? I feel like we made a very clean and tidy half-hour interview.
Oh,
But
love
so,
it. Great.
you
No,
know,
I think that's it. Usually what I like to add, which you already asked, was the advice, just because I think it's so important for us, other people, to get in the game. Like, I really feel like this is like the time, you know, I think anybody who's watching how the world's going is like, this is the time that we need those really bold solutions. And I think it's going to come from us little guys. So I hope everybody can help think of some things. So, and it's so cool to see all of the innovation come out, you know, like you see like the plastic free razors coming out and like the plastic free shampoo and conditioner bars. And you're just like, this is all that are actually good, you know, they actually work and they actually clean your hair, you know? So I think it's exciting. It's exciting.
well, that's a great way to end it. I just want to say thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Elizabeth. This was great.
Yep.